You run your hand across your arm and feel almost nothing. Smooth, bare. A few scattered hairs that seem to have wandered there by mistake. You might think this is just how it is, the default human condition. But it isn't. Your body is an accident of evolution, a biological compromise that took millions of years to arrive at. And the reason you are nearly hairless has nothing to do with aesthetics. It has everything to do with the moment your ancestors decided to run. Let me take you back roughly 2 million years. East Africa. The savanna is expanding, forests are retreating, and a species of early human, likely Homo erectus or one of its close relatives, is doing something no other large mammal on the planet does. It is running, not sprinting, not fleeing, running, long distances, hours even, across the open grasslands under a brutal equatorial sun. And to do this, it had to lose almost everything that covered its skin. Think about that for a moment. Every other mammal on Earth is draped in fur. Lions, elephants, rhinos, even the hairless dog breeds you see today were once fully furred. Fur is not a design flaw, it is a feature. It protects against UV radiation. It insulates against cold. It shields against insect bites and abrasions. So why did your ancestors throw all of that away? The answer starts with a problem your body still carries every single day without you noticing: overheating. When you exercise, your muscles generate enormous amounts of heat. Most mammals solve this problem by panting. They evaporate water from their respiratory tracts and hope for the best. But panting is inefficient during sustained physical exertion. You cannot pant and breathe properly at the same time. If you are running, you need your lungs for air. So your ancestors needed a different cooling system, one that did not interfere with breathing. That system is sweat, specifically eccrine sweat glands. These are the tiny pores you can see across nearly every inch of your skin. They secrete a watery fluid directly onto the surface, where evaporation pulls heat away from the blood flowing just beneath. This is an extraordinary mechanism. No other primate comes close. Chimpanzees have sweat glands, but they are concentrated in small patches and are far less effective. Gorillas rely mostly on behavioral cooling, seeking shade, moving slowly during the heat of day. Humans are the only mammals that can cool themselves systematically across their entire body surface while in motion. But here is the twist. Sweat alone would not have been enough. If your ancestors had kept their fur and simply sweated more, the moisture would have been trapped against the skin. The fur would have stayed wet. Evaporation would have stalled. The cooling system would have short-circuited, so the hair had to go for the sweat to work. They are a paired adaptation. One could not evolve without the other. This is the central insight of what researchers call the sweating hypothesis. It was first articulated in the 1960s by Armalagos and colleagues, who argued that the loss of body hair and the proliferation of sweat glands were linked to the emergence of persistence hunting, the practice of chasing prey, until it collapsed from heat exhaustion. A human could follow a wildebeest or an antelope across the savanna for hours in the midday sun. The animal, unable to shed heat efficiently, would eventually overheat and fall. Then the human would arrive. This is not speculation dressed up as theory. It is backed by ethnographic evidence. The Kung San people of the Kalahari Desert documented hunting this way as recently as the 20th century. They called it Kxani, the Great Tirelessness. Now consider the numbers. A typical adult human has somewhere between 2 and 5 million sweat glands distributed across the skin. That is roughly 6 glands per square centimeter. A chimpanzee has a fraction of that density. And while a chimpanzee might overheat after a few hundred meters of exertion in direct sun, an endurance-trained human can cover 30 kilometers or more before reaching critical core temperature. This is not a marginal difference. It is a qualitative leap in what the body can do. But why did this leap happen in the first place? The timing points to a specific ecological pressure. Around 2 million years ago, the climate of East Africa was shifting. It was becoming drier, warmer, more seasonal. Forests were giving way to open woodland and grassland. The animals your ancestors hunted were changing too. They were faster, more endurance adapted. They lived in open terrain where ambush was nearly impossible. The old strategy of creeping up on prey and delivering a short burst of violence was no longer reliable. A new strategy was needed. one that turned the hottest part of the day from a liability into an advantage. There is another layer to this story that most people do not consider. Your scalp hair did not disappear. In fact, it became longer and denser. This is not a contradiction. It is a refinement. The head houses the brain, and the brain is the most heat-sensitive organ in the body. Even a 1-degree rise in core temperature impairs cognitive function. Researchers like Dennis Brainard have demonstrated that cooling the scalp and face directly improves mental performance and endurance. So while the body shed its coat, the head kept its hat. Your thick scalp hair acts as a thermal shield, reflecting solar radiation and creating an insulating layer of still air above the skull. It is the same principle that makes a wool hat warm in winter and cool in summer. It buffers temperature rather than simply blocking it. You may also notice that some hair remained in specific places. Pubic and axillary hair. These are terminal hairs, thicker, darker, coarser than the vellus hairs that cover the rest of your body. They appeared later in development, during puberty, driven by the same hormones that trigger the secondary sexual characteristics of adulthood. Their purpose is debated. Some researchers suggest they reduce friction during movement and sexual activity. Others propose they serve as pheromone dispersers, trapping and releasing chemical signals that communicate reproductive status. The hair on your head protects the brain. The hair in your armpits and groin may protect social signaling. The rest of your body, the torso, the limbs, the face, was stripped bare because it was in the way. And here is the part that will make you uncomfortable if you think about it too long. Your near-total hairlessness is one of the most extreme examples of sexual selection in the mammalian world. You do not choose your mate based on how well-cooled they are, but evolution does not care about conscious choice. It cares about signal. Bare skin is an honest signal. It is difficult to maintain smooth, clear, parasite-free skin without a functioning cooling system. It is difficult to look healthy and hairless if you are genetically incapable of regulating your temperature. In a species that hunted by endurance, being hairless was not just practical. It was attractive. It was an advertisement written across the entire surface of the body. This brings us to the present moment. You, standing in front of a mirror, shaving your legs, applying deodorant, worrying about a stray hair on your arm. You treat your hairlessness as a minor inconvenience, a daily chore. But every inch of that bare skin is a monument to a choice your ancestors made 2 million years ago. They chose to run. They chose to endure. They chose to lose everything that protected them so they could survive in a world that was getting hotter and more open. Your body is not a poorly designed ape. It is a highly specialized endurance machine. The hair you do not have is more important than the hair you do. It is the difference between a creature that survives a few hundred meters in the heat and a creature that survives all day. It is the difference between hunting by ambush and hunting by persistence. It is the difference between a brain that overheats and shuts down and a brain that stays cool and keeps running. So the next time you look at your bare arm and feel nothing beneath your fingertips, remember what that nothing means. It means your ancestors outran the heat. It means they ran until everything else stopped. It means that the smooth skin on your body is not an absence. It is an achievement.